I think in the best point, it can be made well, it can be done well. The volunteers can gain many things, but also the community can gain, but it has to be thought really well through. What are we going to do? Why are we going to do it? And how we are going to do it?
Voices to hear.
Hey guys, and welcome to Voices to Hear. My name is Clarissa Leute, and I'm here with Ulla Rissanen. Ulla went to Tanzania to be a volunteer, and today we are going to discuss her experience with ethical volunteering abroad.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. My name is Ulla and I come from Finland. And it has been some years since I was volunteering abroad. But yes, I've been volunteering for a few years in Tanzania. So my experience is only from one country. And when I was 19, I had just finished my high school. I went there and I stayed with an orphanage center. I didn't have a background organization. It was somehow bound to church, but the main thing is that I went on my own. I just knew some person from there who invited me there. And then after a few years, when I had started my studies, I went with an organization as a real volunteer. And it was a mission organization, and I stayed in the Bible school. I was teaching there. I was also running some clubs for the students on the free time. And yeah, that is me. Now I'm back in Finland and I'm working for the local church.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for giving us the small introduction. So, what exactly did you do when you went to Tanzania? You already said you had 2 different projects. What did a daily life look like for you?
When I was young, when I was 19 and I went to this orphanage, I really had very daily life tasks on my plate. I was making food, I was doing laundry, I was helping the school kids with their homeworks, I was carrying the water. So I just adapted the culture and tried to learn what is the life there. Even though I stayed in an orphanage home, but I was somehow just an insider who was just living in that place and doing all the things that everywhere else was also doing. But then when a few years later I went back with an organization, then I had a task. I went to teach at the school. It's Bible school and they're training this church workers. I teach them counseling as I am a counselor on my profession. And I also was running these clubs for free time, knitting and discussion clubs and whatever.
Sounds like a lot of different work.
Yeah, that's true.
Would you say in hindsight that you were qualified for the work that you were doing? Did somebody prepare you for all the tasks, or were you kind of on your own?
When I went first time, as I was very young and I didn't have any organization behind of me, I didn't have any education. And yeah, that was something, of course. I wish I would have some education behind me. I went probably just like every other 19-year-old person would go and say, now I'm going and saving the world. So there you would have needed some information and education for that. But yeah, that was the time. But then when I, a few years later, went with an organization, then I got some small education, yes. Even though I think it could have been more.
Would you say in general it's a problem that they're sending volunteers and they're not qualified and they don't really know what's expecting them, or they believe they're going to do more work than they actually will do?
I think that is a very important question. I don't think the problem actually is the education or the lack of the education, but the lack of having a general idea of that, how I'm going there, what is actually my point there, what is my goal. For many of us who have left or who have gone there when we were young, we really thought that we are going to change the world. And that perspective is quite tough and it's giving some difficulty. So I think the education or the training the volunteers would need is mostly to help them to understand on which perspectives or point of view they are heading there. They are probably just going to learn about the culture and the different life. They are also learning about themselves. But I don't think educating them with their profession is the main first line thing there. But yes, I would say they would need more training about the idea, how they are going and why they are actually going there.
Okay. So you already said that there's not everything perfect. There are some ethical dilemmas, and it's like a very broad topic. But for example, there's this one thing called white savior complex. Like, you're this young Finnish girl, you come from a very privileged country, and you go to Tanzania, you have this view like, oh, it's such a poor country and they need my help. What would you say about that?
Yeah, really. I think we could divide it to two parts. The first one is really about money. As they see a white person, they would say, okay, this lady, she really has loads of money. They would start asking it, and as you don't know where are you going, where are you heading, and how is the way of life there, you would easily start giving some money. Even though it wasn't so big money, but still you are just giving money without knowing where it actually is going. And in some point, or actually let's say in quite many points, the money you are giving, you're just giving without knowing where you're giving it. It might cause some more harm than it causes any good. So I think that is something really important that also should be trained for the volunteers when they're going. You should know, you can give money, and actually it's a good thing if you're giving money and helping people, but you should know who to give it to, that it really is going to real good sources there. And the other thing I was saying, we can divide it into two pieces. The other piece or the other side is about the human rights work, human rights based work, when we are working with youth, with kids, with women, with disabled people, whatever, many of those groups, we should always keep in our mind, we should always remember that the societies are not similar. We many times tend to think that the things that are well in Finland or in Germany, wherever you are coming from, it should be the same way in Tanzania. And whether it's not same way, it's not well. But there actually is a big gap in between these societies, and we should first understand how the society is different and actually what is this society needing. And many times we have a clue in our head. We think that I'm going to go there, I'm going to watch what I can see with my eyes, and then I know what I should change. But actually that perspective is not good. I think we need more and more partnership with the locals and the local organizations. And I think our question should be, first of all, what we can do to help you to reach your goals. What is your mission there? What do you think has to be done with your human rights questions in this society? And is there something we can do to help? But it's really not working if we're trying to make this society look similar. I tell you, it's never going to work.
Did you feel like a lot of people went there for their own self-fulfillment and also to have something on their CV that looks good for job applications?
Yeah, I think unfortunately, I think it's very common. And it's also very human. I think it's in us, many of us. But I think to this point we need training. We should understand from which perspectives we are traveling there. And actually, why do we want to do it so much? Nowadays we know all the young people want to do that and want to...
Everybody wants to go abroad.
Yes, they want to mark their CVs. But I think we should more and more ask why questions. Not so many what or how questions, but why. Why I'm willing there, why I'm going there, what is the purpose for me staying there. And I think that's really something we have to train our volunteers well.
I totally agree with you. When I did my research about volunteering, especially in Tanzania and African countries, I read a lot about orphanages. And there was this one thing that really shocked me, that around 80% of the orphans in the orphanages, they're not actually orphans. A lot of the people, like their parents or their families, they are sending them there because they want them to get an education. Did you experience something similar, or did you hear about that?
First I have to say that I didn't work with an organization in an orphanage. So probably I haven't seen on my eyes the worst part of it, but I, of course, obviously, after 4 years in Tanzania, I have heard quite a lot about these cases. And yes, that is true. First of all, the question of being an orphan, it's different compared to Western countries. You might have your dad, you might have your mom left, or then you don't have them, but you still have your sister-in-law or your sisters of your mom or sisters of your father who is still taking care of you, and you probably are not orphan in their way of saying the word. Or then you might have one parent left, but you are still put to the orphan house, and that many times is caused by one thing. You have let's say at least 3 educational levels in Tanzania. You have government schools, then you have these church schools, which are way better. They might be Christian church schools or they might be Islamic schools. And then the highest level of education is private schools. They are very expensive and the fees really are high. Even the government schools, they have fees. But many parents are thinking, I don't want to put my children to the government schools as they really have some problems. Many times the classrooms might be for 20 people, but there are 100 students in it. The teachers, many times they are not so qualified. They may not be paid on their time, so they are not so eager to teach the children well. So maybe many times parents want to put their children to get the better education, and they know one way is to put them to an orphanage center. That's true. It's sad, but it's true. They think this is a way to get a better education for their children. It's very sad, but it's true.
I can imagine. So for your case, you went to the orphanage and you stayed there for 1 year, which means you had a lot of time to get into the organization, to get to know the children and to actually like create a connection with them. But there's also cases they are sending volunteers from Western countries into those countries, and they're only staying for a few weeks. What do you think about that? Like, you have little children and they always need to get used to new volunteers. Does it leave an impact on them?
Yeah, I think that is a quite complex question. Because from the first point, as you are talking about the kids, it's not good for kids' development, as they are just trying to make the trust with some volunteer, and then she would stay 2 months and then she would go and the new one would come. That is not good for somebody who is just developing and probably is not also living, as we know now, it's orphan center. She's not living with her mom or dad. So as you are seeing child development, it's not good for them. That is one point. The other point is also the why question. Why we are sending volunteers abroad? Why do we want them to go there and experience the life? Yes. So it's very complex because somehow staying 6 weeks there or 2 months there, it might really change your world, the volunteers' world and the way of thinking. So I think the question is really complex, but I think on these cases we have to start thinking from the aspect of those child, as we are talking orphanage. We should think what is good for them, what is best for them. We should not think first what is good for volunteers.
Also, what comes to sending volunteers for only a very short amount of time, it's the ecological footprint. They're going on long flights. Do you think it's like sustainable to do short-term volunteering?
Yeah, this is also a very complex question. Because in the best scenario, it might change the volunteers' world and the way of think this world and way to think at all in all. But on the other hand side, it's quite bad for this world, as we know. Just to go and get back, you are not knowing anything where you're going. You cannot change the community in 2 weeks or in 2 months or even in 2 years, actually. Probably it would take like 20 years to change the community. So I think at least we have to consider very strictly what is wise when we are sending these volunteers and what is our goal again. Do we want to change their set of mind, Or what are we aiming with sending volunteers abroad? It's a tricky question, very tricky. Also in bad scenario, what I've seen also in Tanzania, there are some, I would say, fake organizations who are just making good pictures, making soft stories about kids needing your help. Please come, please hug them, be with them. And in the end of the day, everything is just fake. It's just built for gaining money. It's built just for business. So I think we really have to dig very well through which kind of organization you are going with and what is their aim, what is their goal. And not just head up somewhere, just it says Tanzania, it says Malawi, it says South Africa. Now I'm going.
And there's also like a lot of catalogs where you see white volunteers and you see black children and you see them hugging, you see them happy together. And like when you actually convey that to Europe, like I think we would be so confused if somebody would come to a local school and they would like take pictures with them, hugging them, and they're like, oh, we're saving them. So it's kind of a bizarre concept when you really think about it.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. And it has many ethical problems that should be thought through well before doing it. I think in the best point, it can be made well. It can be done well. The volunteers can gain many things, but also the community can gain, but it has to be thought really well through. What are we going to do? Why are we going to do it? And how we are going to do it?
So I can see that you reflected a lot on your stay in Tanzania. Did you think about that before you went? Like, were there a lot of surprises by going there?
Yeah, I think it has been only surprises. I think when you first go there, you think somehow that the societies are somehow similar. But when you stay there, the longer you stay, the more you understand actually this is totally different country. The values and the concept of who you are respecting. On that area where I stayed, there is a very strong witchcraft thing going on. People are really afraid of that and people are dying because of that. It always does something with human blood. The way they are thinking about us white people, they think we're just tourists and it would be great to have your money. But on the other hand side, then when you get to know people, they really are taking you warmly in. You might feel like you are their sister in their society, in their community. So I think it's full of surprises, full of disappointments, full of learning new. So I think really you asked about the surprises, it's full of them. And I think the main thing is to have a humble mind, and you should have the attitude, yes, I'm here, but I'm just learning about your culture, about your life, which is so different compared to mine. It's not the same. I have to admit that.
What was one of your biggest cultural shocks when you went there?
Probably when I'm thinking 10 years back, the difference between women and men, it was so clear. For example, when you are dating to somebody as you are young, you are not supposed to spend time with him. It's not okay to hang around with him or with her. You have to use your mobile phone beforehand, letters, but it's not good to boys and girls to go together, walk together. Like shaking hands, that's totally no.
So did you still have contact to boys or was it like a no-go?
As I was living in an orphanage home, it was a good place because there we were all together, boys and girls. But the rules are quite limited. You have to know what is good to do. Of course, when I first went, I didn't know about these rules and I connected with everybody. Then slowly I started to understand, actually this might be the best way to do it. Yeah, that was my first shock, let me say, but it's like 10 years ago.
It's crazy. Okay, so I can see that you gained a lot of experience and not all of it was good. It seems like you really had some moments here where you were kind of questioning everything, but after all, what did you gain from the time?
I think I really have gained a lot. I've been volunteering for 2 years and working 2 years in Tanzania. And I think those years really have changed me quite a lot. My mindset, my way of thinking, many times from my colleagues here in Finland, they are giving me a feedback that it's great to have somebody who can think out of the bubble. I think really it has changed me. It had made me to think who I am, what is important to me, what are my values, what is actually important to me, what is the meaning of life. I think really I have gained a lot, and probably even more during those difficult times that I have faced there in Tanzania. So I think also those difficult situations, hard times, have really taught me a lot.
Would you still recommend to go there? If there's some super motivated young person right now, would you tell them to go there, or would you tell them, please, don't go there?
I would say definitely go, but I have a big but here. I would say please try to find an organization that is open about their values, about their ways of acting there. Try to find some organization you can really trust and you can really feel good about it. Because there are many organizations, unfortunately, that is not doing so good work there. It's really sad, but I would say yes, please go, but make a good research before going there.
So about the advice, there's also some people saying that it doesn't really make sense to send volunteers there who are not qualified, but to rather donate money to the local people so they can build their community. What do you think about that?
I think my answer is almost the same than for your previous question. Please give money there, they need money, but first make a good research where are you giving your money to. You really have to know where it goes, how it is used, with values. You can just give like millions of dollars or euros there and it can cause so many harm. Please do proper research first. But please share your money there also. It's not equal in this world, and I think it's our task to try to make it more equal. But with the wise sense first, please.
That's a very good advice, and I think a lot of people could need that. Is there something else that you would like to share? Some experience that really stick to your mind?
Yeah, I could share one story. It's about a girl who I was working with. She was 21 years old when I first met her, and she came to study in the school where I was first volunteering and then working after I graduated. And when she came to school, she couldn't write, she couldn't read very well, and later I found out that she had not gone to school because of her dad was being a witchcraft. And his thought was that this lady would continue his career. And of course, he didn't want to pay the school fees there. A few years before this lady came to study in our school, or to that school, her father had died. And she said it was sad, but it was a relief because now she knew that she could decide on her own what she's doing. And she told me that she had seen so many bad things when she was young, when she was kid, as her father was training her to be a witchcraft when she gets older. She had seen many people killed and seen violence so much. She had seen so much people blood. It was disgusting in many ways. And it was all because of this witchcraft thing there. And then I asked, why do you want to come to study to be a church worker? Why do you choose this career and this education? And she said, well, I have seen a hell in this life already, and I've got a relief from that. I don't have to do that anymore, and I have seen that I don't have to live in that hell, but I want to help other people to get out of it. So I think that is something really has stick into my mind, that lady. And now she's working there with the local community, and I think she's the best worker there because she knows the thinking of people there, and she's really doing a good work there now.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's really nice to see those developments and people processing. So cool. Okay, so I guess that's it. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was very interesting. And I think, yeah, it really shows us to do our research and to think outside of the box, to not have this black and white thinking. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you, and enjoy your volunteering.
I sure will. Perfect.